Okay, here's attempt several at trying to record something. I really haven't been able to sleep that much past few days because I've been just really thinking about all of the circumstances that have led up to today when it comes to my work history. When I was 15, I got a job at a slaughterhouse to pay for gas money. I had just got my permit, and it was the summer before my junior year of high school. I started out just washing down the processing facility where they broke down the carcasses, and I got asked if I wanted to go work on the owner's farm, just doing some painting fence, pulling weeds, mowing, mending barbed wire fence, stuff that I had been doing since I was a kid. After a couple weeks, my boss asked me to fill in on the kill floor. I was a little hesitant, but I was there for about a week and a half, maybe a little bit longer. It might not have even been that long. It felt like an eternity. One of the first things that happened was I had a friend of mine, probably my best friend at the time, bring his show pig up to be processed. This is an animal that I had seen pretty much every day that I had went to go take care of my pigs also. That pig was always out there. I met him at the gate and he was already tearing up a little bit. I kept my composure until I was at least walking away. He wanted to make sure that she was taken care of and she was treated nice. And I knew how the people that I worked with handled the animals before processing. The cattle prod was less of an option and more of a requirement. And the more you used it, the sooner that we got to go on lunch. In the beginning stages, I was there to just clean up, set up, transfer barrels full of guts to and fro, remove the hides and salt them in the salt curing room. Whenever his pig got slaughtered, I was in the room with the hides, crying and shoveling salt. Whenever I started to take more part in the actual dispatching of the animals, I was taught a method that I later learned wasn't approved of for the animals that we were dispatching. I was taught to use basically what you would call the crown on someone's head, the point at which hair spirals out of, and use that as a target for the pneumatic gun. I can't pet someone's head or look at the top of someone's head without seeing that crown and thinking about the smell of gunpowder and hearing the plink noise. There's not a whole lot of room for error. It's kind of a fucked up thought, but there's no wrong way to kill something. It just prolongs the process. The amount of time that spans between pulling the trigger and having the animal hoisted had to be between, I'd say, 10 to 30 seconds, because that's all the time you had before the animal started kicking. There was one black and white heifer that came in, kind of a smaller heifer. Whenever I used the bolt gun, she fell directly onto her legs, and I'm crouched down trying to lift the gate, throw the chains on, get her legs out from under her all at the same time. And about half a second after I see all of those muscle fibers start to tense up, I'm being propelled back on my ass on wet concrete. A huge bruise on my leg. There wasn't a whole lot of time for me to think about what had happened. You just kind of have to keep going. I knew I had been hit because I felt it. But the only thing that went through my mind was, she missed, she should have aimed higher. And waves of guilt and rage fade everything into a white static, and you just revert back to muscle memory. I have a real keen smell for blood in the air now. I have a good sense of smell in general. And let me tell you, having 55-gallon drums full of guts and organs and digested food, feces all sitting on a concrete slab in the middle of July in Oklahoma doesn't smell like roses. If you didn't poke the stomachs before setting them outside, they would expand to, I would say, 5 or 6 times their normal size. And then you would figure out which ones didn't get poked because you would hear a really wet pop and then a real quiet hiss, and then the smell hits you. Sometimes you couldn't tell the difference between the smell of the guts on the concrete next door and the runoff pond behind the building that was rumored to have a catfish in it at some point, but there's so much blood and organic matter in there that I have no idea how anything could have lived. I mean, it was just a pool of red that would eventually fade to kind of a dark, rusty brown black throughout the day as all the fresh blood just kind of oxidized in the sun, in the open air. The sounds of 22 primers, 22 long rifles, 357 magnums going off in a concrete room. You feel it in your feet, in your chest, in your skull. The 357 was only used a couple times when I was there. One of the more fucked up things I saw, we were processing a load of bison, and you would just kind of keep an eye out and see when they were about to bring another one in and plug your ears with your fingers. There was one heifer that was extremely large for her size, and it turns out that she wasn't a heifer at all, she was a cow. She was pregnant, and nobody knew that until she was upside down and split open. It was supposed to be just a load of heifers. There shouldn't have been a bull with them from the stories that I was told. But her uterus was full for a little bit. The guys that I was working with, it was one of the last ones of the day, and I guess they thought it would be fun to cut open the uterus and then chase each other around with a fetus that slowly turned from pink to purple. That was one of the last days that I worked on the kill floor. And then my boss came back, and then I went back to doing menial work. I didn't do so hot after going back to regular tasks. I lasted a couple weeks, and then I got a call as I was going to go fishing with a friend, and the boss said that they had downsized. Somebody from the company had bought into the business, and they were going to be taking over my duties. So it was really an interesting feeling to get laid off before you even taken the ACT yet. I lasted about 3 months at that job. And besides being an RA at the college that I went to, about 3 months is about as long as 3 months is the extent of my time at any job that I've been at. All my little mistakes that I do, all the little mistakes that inevitably happened because you're starting a brand new job, had an overemphasized importance that I didn't understand and other people didn't understand. I convinced myself it was because I wanted to be a good worker and I wanted to be an asset to the team, but I think it's because I associated my mistakes with inherent suffering. Most of the jobs that I have worked have ended with me having some form of panic attacks, seizures, or just falling into depressive cycles. Despite all that, I was on my way to be a part of a state agency that was really close with my degree that I was going towards. I started to explore my gender identity. It wasn't well received and was something that I was implicitly informed to hide at all costs. I also got to slowly watch environmental destruction from a front row seat. The last inspection that I ever went on was a farmer that had a bunch of his cropland destroyed by a saltwater disposal well that had bubbled up to the surface. When we got there, we being me and the inspector that I was shadowing, the path of rectification that this company chose was to pour a 24-inch concrete slab around a hole in the ground and have a pump that led to a roll-off tank. When we pulled up, the pump wasn't on, and it was about to start overflowing again whenever it rained, it would automatically overflow because the pump was not based on any kind of a timer or based on any kind of sensors. There were data collection units there, but the pump had to be turned on manually. We tried to get a hold of somebody to come turn the pump on. I don't remember getting a hold of anybody. We met the farmer after getting no luck with the company, and he's a real nice guy. It had been a problem that had been going on for about 2 years at that time. He had mentioned that he had hired a couple lawyers and all of his lawsuits were still in bureaucratic limbo. He left, and I asked the inspector that I was shadowing how she dealt with all the ennui of being a little cog in a big machine, and she said, I don't know, but whenever you find out, let me know, because I was wondering the same thing. And then right after that, we went to a creek that was about, probably 300, 400 yards away, and there was oil seeping up through the ground and washing into the creek. After coming to terms with the reality that I wouldn't be able to make many small changes from within, especially knowing that any amount of individuality that I showed would be taken as political and would somehow interfere with my job or my ability to do my job. I really don't know where I'm supposed to go from here.